Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon is underrated. It has been overshadowed by other great games released of the last year and by From Software's previous game Elden Ring. Many fans of From Software have skipped this title as it is not a Souls game, and being an ace combat mech game is pretty niche. However, what they are missing out on is a game with some of the most diverse customization and character build options, frantic high-paced mech combat, overlaid with some of the best sound design I've heard in recent memory, top-notch boss fights, and for my money, the best story and cast of characters From Software has yet to deliver. This is another triumph of a game by From Software, but I initially skipped this game on release due to some middling reviews from popular sources and simply a lack of hype upon its release. In retrospect though, this game reviewed really well, 86 I think on Metacritic, and I think it has an 8 user score. But there's enough opinions out there giving the impression that this game was good but not great, at least the ones I saw. So, months later when I finally tried the game out, I can see why some people may have felt this way. This game is pretty slow at the beginning, and I could see many players giving up on the game due to not understanding how to build their mech properly, or running into one of the early game difficulty spikes like the first boss. The opening mission boss fight, it's not hard. It's not hard, and it's not hard compared to any of the other bosses to come afterwards. But this boss will destroy you unless you adapt to the game like you did in Sekiro. When I played Sekiro for the first time, that game kicked my butt from left to right field, and still does because that game is really hard, but it's significantly harder than Armored Core. But what made that game really hard to get into was just trying to unlearn everything I learned from previous From Software games and adapt the gameplay style that Sekiro has. Armored Core is really similar in that way, where you gotta play this the way it wants you to play it, and it can be really hard to learn. I mean, I've never played a mech style game, and this one's really unique in its own right, so it took me some time, and you're gonna get your butt kicked if you can't pick that up. So, the end of the first chapter also has a really hard part where you fight two bosses back to back, and they are by far the most difficult encounters you will have up until this point, and I would say for me, the most challenging part of the game altogether. I died so many times to Baltius, so many times, and I never died to a boss that many times again. He was by far the hardest part of this game. And it was because you're just limited to the amount of customization options at this point, and I was still learning how to build my Armored Core and how to play this game properly. So I could see a lot of people either dropping the game at this point, or not ever really figuring out how to be successful in the game. Now, I managed to get past this difficulty curve and learn the game systems myself, and I could not put the game down after that. It was just, from that point on, once I learned how to play, it was an enthralling game. The structure of its missions are actually a highlight as well. I know it's different from what the games that From Software have done, where you got your open world. This one's mission-based, and the structure of its missions are built to enhance the narrative. I guess what you'll see is that when you make choices and decisions in this game, because there are some choices and decisions you can make, they're not that significant, but just going through the game with this mission structure and having it all focused around what you're doing makes you feel, or makes your actions feel, really significant in this story, which is in stark contrast to how From Software has delivered their stories in previous games, because in the Dark Souls games, in Elden Ring, you really feel insignificant. Even when they try to tell you you're significant, you feel insignificant to the larger world around you. Where Armored Core 6, Fires of Rubicon, is more of a power fantasy. It delivers a far more direct narrative, unlike how From Software has usually put the narrative kind of in the background, and you're really just taking in the world and the lore, and that's great. But I really wish From Software would do this more often, and hopefully more in the future, because I love the story and characters of Armored Core 6. I mean, From Software has shown in this game that they know how to make a really compelling story and really great characters. I'd love to see them do more direct stories in the future. It's the thing that stuck with me the most. It's honestly the best narrative experience I've played in 2023, and that's even compared to story-driven games I've played, say Spider-Man 2, which also had a great story, but this game really stuck with me more. Just I don't know. I'd have to do like a story breakdown to tell you why. But it really was, like, for me, like the best story of the year as well, as far as what I played. I mean, I didn't finish like Baldur's Gate 3, for example, but based off the games I did play, I've played through Legend of Zelda, I've seen it played, and I can't think of all the games I played, but this was the best narrative for me. The narrative, it really gets highlighted within the gameplay. So there's this part in the game where you battle this giant ice worm, and that might be my favorite gaming moment from all of last year. It's just a story highlight. It's just a awesome spectacle of a moment. It was just fantastic. I got goosebumps during the whole section, and it's one of the highlights of From Software's, like, of any of their games. It sticks out that much. Like, trying to think, I don't want to spoil anything, but it was for the other games in From Software's catalog if you haven't played them. But yeah, it was awesome. Now I've heard reviewers claim, now this drives me crazy. I've heard reviewers claim that there is no story in Armored Core 6. Like, I've heard that from like 3 or 4 different sources when I was looking at reviews early on this game, and I was like, oh, okay, well, I mean, whatever. I wasn't really expecting there to be much of a story. And that's so far from the truth, it's crazy. I don't understand. Like, did we play the same game? Did we? Like, because unless you're, like, purposely not paying attention to the story beats and character interactions, I don't know how you can, like, even if you didn't like the story, I don't know how you can come across and say there's no story in this game. It was a huge, like, there's so many, like, story beats and pieces of dialogue continuously and just fed through this experience. I don't understand how you can come to that conclusion. I don't know what happened there, but this didn't come from every reviewer I've heard, but from a few, where I was really shocked after playing this game, being like, that is so not true. It's definitely one of the highlights of this game. So, anyhow, I wanted to say this game, to me, based off things like that I've heard, based off the fact that I don't think this game really received much hype or recognition for very long after released, and is talked about at the end of the year as a great of the year. Really, I mean, I really think this should have been nominated for a game of the year. I mean, that's just me, right? But I feel this game is really underrated. I really think this should be put up there on the pedestal of all of the other FromSoft works. And I just feel like it's not. I don't think people look at it that way. They look at it as a game where it's like, okay, this was cool for like Armored Core fans, but otherwise, we're just looking forward to the next, Elden Ring DLC. I'm like, guys, this is a near masterpiece. I wouldn't say, it's a 10 out of 10. In fact, after thinking about it from my personal perspective, I give this game like an 8.5, almost a 9. And there's a couple reasons to that, but it more has to do with, I think, the structure of missions and how the layout of the levels look. There's some fantastic layouts, but there's even more layouts and designs of the open world, the mission, like just what am I trying to say, the game design in the maps that are really underwhelming, and they didn't have to be that way. I feel like this game could have taken like another year of development just for them to like spice up the environments more. That would have been a huge improvement, I think, on the game. And also, I think there is some weapon balancing issues going on here. There are some really stupid OP builds you can make in this game, and I think that should have been balanced better. But aside from that, I love this game. It is really good. I think if you're a From Software fan and you're looking for something unique to play, looking for something unique to play, because this is not like anything else out there, you should play this game. It is, I can't guarantee you'll love it, but it was so good to me that I have to recommend it. I gotta, tell everyone this game was, I think, severely underrated and has been underrated because it's just not talked about enough, I feel. So, there you go, Armored Core 6. It's a great game and is really underrated. Please give it a shot.